If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. OJ Made in America is a 2016 American documentary produced and directed by Ezra Edelman for ESPN Films and their 30 for 30 series. It was released as a 5-part miniseries and in a theatrical format. OJ Made in America premiered at the Sundance Film Festival on January 22, 2016 and was theatrically released in New York City and Los Angeles in May 2016. It debuted on ABC on June 11, 2016 and aired also on ESPN. The documentary received critical acclaim and won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature at the 89th Academy Awards. It was the longest film in the 30 for 30 catalogue and the longest film ever to receive an Oscar nomination and win, surpassing War and Peace. The documentary runs for 467 minutes. The documentary became the last of its type to be nominated and win an Oscar after a new Academy rule barred any multi-part or limited series from being eligible for the documentary categories. Edelman received the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Directing for Non-Fiction Programming for his work on the project. The series also received a Peabody Award for its work. Through interviews, news footage, and archival audio and video, OJ Made in America traces the life and career of O.J. Simpson, starting with his arrival at the University of Southern California as an emerging football star and ending with his incarceration for the 2007 robbery in Las Vegas. The documentary focuses on Simpson's life, the football success, television and acting career, his relationship with Nicole Brown, the domestic abuse he inflicted upon her, Nicole and Ron Goldman's murder, and the subsequent trial, which all runs parallel to the larger narrative of the city of Los Angeles, which serves as a host to mounting racial tensions and the volatile relationship between the city's police department and the African American community. Footage from the Watts riots was used as well as the entire Rodney King video, which most news outlets and documentaries only use parts. The series also documents the LA riots in 1992, post the non-guilty verdict of 3 of the 4 white police officers that beat up Rodney King. The documentary also briefly covers the March 16, 1991 murder of 9th grader Latasha Harlins after physical altercation with storekeeper Sue John Dew. Dew would be convicted of voluntary manslaughter and the jury recommended the maximum sentence of 16 years, but Judge Joyce Carlin decided against prison time and sentenced Dew to 5 years of probation, 400 hours of community service and a $500 fine instead. All these events are used to set up and explain what happened during the Simpson murder trial itself, which became more of a dispute over race relations in America than if the man actually murdered these 2 people. Development for the documentary based on Simpson for ESPN Films began in 2007, eventually leading to the hiring of Brett Morgan to create the film, which was called June 17, 1994, also part of the 30 for 30 series. Released in June 2010, June 17, 1994 used solely archive footage from several sporting events that occurred on June 17, 1994 to chronicle the events of the police chase of O.J. Simpson. ESPN Films executive producer Connor Shell said, "If you're going to do O.J. Simpson, you're going to have to cover June 1994 to October 1995. It's unavoidable, but if you're interested in the things that came before it and after it, then it has to be longer than the traditional 2-hour format." This led to a meeting between Shell and director Ezra Edelman in February 2014, where Shell expressed interest in creating a 5-hour documentary on Simpson. Edelman initially declined as he felt there was nothing left to say about him. Edelman eventually agreed to the project, realizing that Simpson's trial did not have to be the focus, or if he was innocent or guilty. Rather, Edelman could use the canvas to tell a deeper story about race in America and about the city of Los Angeles and the relationship between the black community and the police, and who OJ was and his rise to celebrity. Edelman would say, "That was the story I wanted to tell." Throughout the 18-month process from conception to completion, Edelman conducted 72 interviews for the documentary, including key players from the prosecution, Marsha Clark, Jill Garcetti, and Bill Hodgman, Simpson's defense team, F. Lee Bailey, Carl E. Douglas, and Barry Sheck, childhood friends of Simpson, Joe Bell and Kelvin Tennyson, relatives of Simpson, cousin Dwight Tucker, fellow football players Jim Brown and Earl Edwards, jurors from the criminal trial, Carrie Bess and Yolanda Crawford, former LAP detectives involved in the case, Mark Furman and Tom Lang, and African-American civil rights activists, Dr. Harry Edwards, Danny Bakewell, and Cecil Murray, and people who could speak on behalf of Ron Goldman, his father Fred Goldman, and Nicole Brown Simpson, her sister Tanya Brown, her friends David LeBon and Robin Greer, and her ex-boyfriend Keith Zalomowicz. Also interviewed were people connected to Simpson, such as his agent Mike Gilbert, along with Tom Rico, who each involved parties after the 2008 robbery. Edelman also reached out to Simpson through a letter, which was never answered. He also hoped to include Simpson's first wife, Marguerite Whitley, who could not be contacted, as well as former LA County District Attorney Christopher Darden, who declined participation. Despite envisioning the project as a 5-hour documentary, the final film was screened to ESPN Film executives as 7.5 hours in length, to which Shell said they would figure out the programming end and they were going to give Ezra the time he needed to tell this story. The initial plan was to break the film into 3 parts, everything leading up to the murder and then the trial and then everything after, before the final 5-part format was settled on. In January of 2016, ESPN Films announced O.J. Made in America for a part of their 30 for 30 series. Ishmael Reed was interviewed by director Ezra Edelman for O.J. Made in America. However, his interview was never used in the final documentary. Reed was critical of the documentary in an article he wrote for the magazine Counterpunch. He stated, "In this series, other prosecutors yammered on about their theories that were disproven in court. A detective who might have planted evidence was allowed to take up time in order to make the case that the decision in the criminal trial was based on black grievances about the LAPD or Mark Furman. They used a black juror whose opinion fits this marketable line instead of jurors who voted on the basis of evidence that had been tampered with." Ishmael would state, "The late Philip Van Atier, an investigator on the case, never explained why he carried a vial of the victim's blood to O.J.'s estate." Gary Lionelli would compose the main score for the documentary. He said he felt it challenging to score such an epic real-life saga, revolving around O.J. Simpson's life progressing through his emerging football career, popularity and downfall, as he did not want to sensationalize it or trivialize it in any way, but to focus on the overall tragedy, on the circumstances that led the direct course of this music. Lionelli had recalled that Edelman wanted a solo trumpet and oboe in the score. Jeff Bernal played the trumpet in a specific cues that consisted strings and piano, set in a lyrical, introspective and detached style that has had an effect of the forewarning about O.J.'s ultimate fall from his once great heights. The soundtrack would be nominated at the 69th Primetime Emmy Awards. Now for me, I've always had a morbid fascination within the whole O.J. Simpson murder trial case. This truly is a story of the American dream gone wrong. How one man who rose above it all and had everything could throw it all away, all because basically he couldn't control his anger. It's a truly tragic tale, but what I absolutely loved about this compelling documentary miniseries is that the documentary brilliantly contextualizes Simpson's story with the broader socio-cultural landscape of America, exploring issues of race, celebrity, and the criminal justice system itself. Through its use of archival footage, interviews, and expert analysis, it provides a comprehensive examination of the case and its significance in American and world history. For me, one of the most striking aspects of O.J. Made in America is its exploration of race relations in America, particularly the ways in which Simpson's celebrity intersected with perceptions of race and privilege. The documentary delves into the racial dynamics of the trial, highlighting how Simpson's defense team strategically framed the case as a referendum on the race relations in America. How O.J. himself became sort of a civil rights icon, quite ironic for a man that completely almost removed himself from the community. This documentary delves into race relations leading up to the trial. It stems all the way back to the Watts riots, leading up to 1992's Los Angeles riots, and the complicated and abusive relationship between the African American community and the Los Angeles Police Department. This foreshadowing is so important to the actual 1995 trial, where almost all of the evidence was irrefutable. Yet the trial became more of a reflection on the state of race relations within the city of Los Angeles than based on the actual facts of did O.J. kill these 2 people or not. Additionally, the documentary sheds light on the media circus surrounding the trial and its impact on public perception. It also offers poignant insights into the lives of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, whose deaths were often overshadowed by the spectacles of the trial. I found the documentary to be historically meticulous and very focused on the human interest side of things. For me, this is a complete masterclass of excellent journalism combined with cinematic presence. And what it does do is it shines a light on one of the most famous cases in United States history, but from a completely and utterly different perspective. Some criticize the running length, but frankly, this documentary needed to be this long. It needed to be this detailed, meticulous, and well thought out. This is an intelligent documentary that I'd recommend everybody should see once. That it doesn't just focus on the rise and fall of O.J. Simpson, but rather it focuses on the greater subjects of relationships, racism, and power of celebrity, and pushes forth the strange juxtaposition of a man who transcended color, who became so famous, and yet ultimately fell into oblivion. This is arguably one of the greatest documentaries I've ever watched, and one of those cases and subjects that continues to fascinate and hold interest, even if O.J. Simpson himself has since passed on. This is a complete and utter masterpiece, which offers a thought-provoking exploration of one of the most notorious figures in American history. It also speaks to the greater conflict that has defined America for oh so long, namely the race divide. Not to mention its breathtaking, harrowing, perfectly composed score, with its phenomenal attention to detail, fantastic writing, brilliant research, an insightful look into the much deeper subject of not just the O.J. trial, but the trial of America. O.J. Made in America gets a 10 out of 10.